everybody. It's Andrew Henziker, CPA with Dope CFO, and today we're going to look at the PBC list and kind of what is it, why it's important to clients, and just kind of run through it. We're also going to give our cleanup guide, which goes with the nicely with the PBC list, because you will have a lot of trouble doing cleanup if you don't have a PBC list. So first off, let's just jump into what exactly it is. I've got mine open here. So PBC means prepared by client. That was kind of a nickname when I worked in Big Four. I think it's been used for decades. And so whenever we would go in for an audit of a company, we'd have a long list of things we wanted before we could even get started. So we use this to get started on a new client, and it's super important for many reasons. So first off, accounting, we are recording transactions and events, and so if we don't have the correct information and data and documents in our files, we can't really do accounting correctly. And so some accountants and bookkeepers I've found just will jump in and start accounting for transactions. Maybe there's an invoice, but they don't have the key kind of more permanent documents. So when I think about PBC, it's an ongoing thing forever with the client. So the big thing we're doing initially when we're onboarding a client, we want to get what I call permanent files, and we'll get those up to date. Those are things that rarely, if ever, change, or change just occasionally. So a good example are organization docs, like the actual LLC or C Corp documents to form the company. Or maybe they have a 20-year lease on their building. That's a very important document. Now, just because it's permanent doesn't mean it won't ever change. Another example is a debt agreement. You could have an amendment to a debt agreement, or a new debt agreement, or the lease could change or be amended, or maybe it expires and you need to get a new lease agreement. Or even the organizational documents can be amended. So those will occasionally change. We just need to make sure that we're on top of getting them up front, and then once they change as well. Temporary files are what we're going to get every single month. We're going to collect and upload as well, which includes, I'll go through that in a minute. So again, why this is super important to you as an accountant. First off, generally with new clients, we're doing cleanup work, because I think you'll find 9 times out of 10, the books are not in order. That's oftentimes why they're hiring us as a new accountant. They've even figured out our books aren't in order. Maybe they needed a loan, or they had an audit, or the IRS showed up, or they needed to raise capital and they realized their documents weren't up to snuff. And so you come in. And so it's very, very important both to do the cleanup correctly and then to do the ongoing accounting correctly. Because again, if you don't have the correct documents, so for example, if you don't have the lease agreement, you're not going to be able to record rent expense correctly every month. And you're not going to know what accruals to make, and maybe there's other things mentioned in the lease that they owe later, not just the rent check. And so you want to make sure you read through these documents as you get them. Let me walk through kind of what I like to get on the permanent files. Let me see. So day one, we're going to jump in, we're going to give them this big list. We're going to do it in some kind of share file. So as they add something, they can check, I uploaded that or whatever, and then we'll check off we got it. Sometimes they'll give us something and we'll find out it's not executed. So I see this all the time. They'll have a LLC agreement that needs to be signed by 3 people, and they'll give you the one that they've got signed by 2 people. So we want to make sure we get fully executed final documents when we get things. And so in the permanent files, as it relates to Cannabis, we're going to there's lots and lots of software and apps in Cannabis. So we want to know what the software our clients are using, what apps they're using, what are they using for payroll, CRM, POS, etc. We want to know what merchant services they're using. liable to be a lot of different companies there because there's many cannabis merchant services since the big ones aren't doing it. Same on POS system, could be Greenbits or FlowHub or many others. We also want to know what state seed to sale system they have. Is it Metric or BioTrack? And we want access as well to the software that we need access to. Oftentimes they can just make you a user where you can log in and download reports or whatever you need. Then we'll go down through, basically we start at the balance sheet at the top, cash, then AR, inventory, and we'll go through and get everything we need. Like with cash, we want to get all of our banking relationships, bank accounts, bank statements for each financial institution for the prior year, and the cleanup date, depending where we are. If we're doing, say, a cleanup, we're in 2020, we're going to do a cleanup date at June 30th of 2020, but we're also going to do a little mini cleanup of 2019. So we're going to make sure we have things tied out, bank recs and bank statements at 12/31/19 and also June 30th. And then as we go forward, we'll be collecting that every month with our monthly accounting policy or procedures. Inventory, we want to make sure we get counts at whatever key dates, like 12/31/2019 and also June 30th. Counts are our best evidence, both for accuracy and existence for inventory, so we want to make sure they do those. Fixed assets, we want to make sure we have a good listing of all the assets, acquisition date, useful life, purchase price. Also, normally fixed assets are high dollar. We want to make sure we have invoices for those, even if they were bought several years ago, just to see that those were recorded right. Intercompany is another big one, and related party. Intercompany transactions are between a parent and a subsidiary, and also related parties are maybe a parent and a sister company. Maybe there's common ownership between those two companies. We want to make sure these balances are on a good schedule and they net out to zero at all times. Oftentimes they won't because the accounting's done wrong, so we need to make sure we have that. We're going to get accounts receivable and accounts payable listing, and aging schedules. We want to make sure we have all the leases that they have. When we go through leases and debts and credit cards, we're actually going to have them, before we get started, confirm in writing that the CEO will write, hey, here's all of our debt, leases, credit cards, and we've given you all these. You have access. There are no other debts that are not disclosed to you. You want to make sure you get that. Otherwise, 8 months into the engagement, Sally will show up that's a cousin of somebody and say, hey, I lent them 10 grand. It should be on the books. You don't want those surprises. Same on your equity section. You really want to have a capitalization table that shows where all the equity came from, which date it came in. Is it common stock, preferred? Is it LLC interest? What is it? What was paid for? And make sure the equity, the amounts recorded in equity, which are not very often recorded there, are correct. We're also going to get prior year tax returns. We can look at that. We can look at the Schedule L to compare the balance sheet and the difference was between the balance sheet per books and per tax return. Make sure those look right. Also, who's the payroll provider? Look at their prior year and cleanup date 941 reports. Also, legal, all contracts, which could be customers, vendors, investors, shareholder agreements, LLC agreements, bylaws, minutes, employment agreements, org chart. I like to get all this stuff. Many times, whether it's a stock option agreement or a board minute or something other, it will have things that need to be recorded in the financial statement. So if you don't have that stuff, you're not going to know how to record it, meaning the books are going to be wrong. So you want to make sure you have that stuff and it's recorded correctly. Same also insurance policies. You want to know when the renewal date. You want to make sure the prepaid balance is recorded correctly. And we have lots of policies, maybe workers' comp, health, property, liability, product insurance. We also want to get contact info for if they have, say, a tax CPA or a bookkeeper or whoever they don't have or have and use that is not you. Get that contact info. Same on attorneys. That's good to have if you need to reach out with a question. Also in cannabis, we need lots of compliance docs. We want to make sure if there's an HR manual, we have it. Training documents, are there any standard operating procedures? We can build those up into our files. Their state cannabis license, HR provider if they have one as well. So that's all the permanent stuff to get started. Once we get started every month, there's going to be recurring items that they're going to know they need to get up to you by, I think, the 7th or 8th day after the month. And that's going to include bank statements, bank recs, credit card statements, invoices, receipts scanned, new contracts or leases, new debt or equity or amendments, all checks written, payroll reports, new acquisitions or unusual items, and then any counts of inventory and whatnot. So we're going to get that every single month so that we can update the books and do all of our accounting and build out their permanent audit trail. So very, very important. Make sure you get this stuff. One question I get a lot, can you start before you get all this? Because invariably, it will take them a fair amount of time to get you all this stuff. You can get started. I like to get most of it if possible. And at first, we're going to meet every 3 or 4 days. We put an owner. So if the business owner's up here, we say who is in charge of getting this stuff. Fred, Joe, Sally, whoever it is, that they're important. The business owner has let them, or have a meeting together, and the business owner lets them know, look, this is super important. You need to focus on this. Step 1 to get them what they need. This isn't something that we do over the next 3 months. It needs to be, and then you quickly find out where are the holes, where are the missing items, what's missing, and then you can figure out, okay, can we get started? Can we start building some of our internal controls? Can we start on some cleanup from the prior stuff? But I would prefer to have most of it before I get started. And sometimes it's so bad you never get started and you don't want to waste your time. So we'll have a fee initially just to get this set up and get the process going. That's non-refundable. But if we get in, and this happened to us with a client, 60 days and they just keep giving excuses for why they can't get any key documents, we might have to disengage. Say, we cannot do accounting without key documents. If you don't have them, you'll have to go hire somebody else. Around that issue, I use our marketing system and fee structure for how we are going to actually more easily get stuff. So on day 1, back to my very first phone call with a business owner, I let them know we do accounting and tax. We don't ask them how to do it or what they need. We do it right. And by doing it right, we're going to build them a world-class set of books with a built-in audit trail. They're going to have more cash in their pocket. They're going to have better taxes, lower taxes, more value at exit. So that's what we give to them, but it's non-negotiable what we need to do that job right. And we're going to charge them a lot of money for it. So because we're charging them a lot of money to do this right at what we call a world-class level, the more they pay us, the more incentive they have to comply and get this up to speed. Generally, they've already realized having crappy books hurts them with auditors or lenders or whoever, and so they're on board already. But once they put their paycheck down, it's like we get a big retainer. Our cleanup rates are pretty high because we don't know how long it will take going backwards, but they're being billed every month along the way. So if we start in August and our fee's $5,000 a month, and it takes 90 days to do cleanup, they're paying us $5,000 for August, September, October, even though we may not even be doing that till December. And so they're paying that, plus they're paying high cleanup fees every month on top of that. And so this gives them incentive. The owner has buy-in at the top. They're putting pressure on whoever needs to be getting us what we need. Now, if you don't get this buy-in at first, if you kind of let the owner treat you like an employee and they're not paying you very much, and you let them kind of be that boss type person, then you're going to be in for a headache from day 1. And so this is very, very important on how we set this up. Now, another part of that buy-in with the client is we sell the owner not just on why these world-class books are going to be valuable to you. Just getting this PBC list is hugely valuable to the client, Because more often than not, and I'd say I've been doing this for 20 years and basically have never seen someone that has their stuff in order. So I call this kind of organizing the closet, the PBC list, setting up what we call perpetual data room, which is a cloud based. We have access to it, they have access to it. So they're not emailing this stuff, they're uploading this to their own files that we are then organizing them for them. And so imagine you hire a closet organizer to come into your house and organize your closets. That's what we're doing. It's at their house, it's at your house. We're organizing their stuff in their house where we leave it for them to do better. So anyone with organization skills can do this, but once you do it, you're going to be adding value. So for one, it's going to be accessible and usable. So if they need it for a loan or an investor or their board or whoever, or just to run the company, it's accessible. Secondly, as you do this, you're invariably going to find a lot of errors. You're going to find a lease or a note payable to someone's cousin who it wasn't signed or whatever. You're going to find those and you're going to say, hey, this isn't right, we need to fix this. Or something's missing, we need to go back and find where we can get source document. So we're going to put their initial permanent files in order, and we're going to make sure they're fixed and accurate. And just having that alone not only enables us to come and do the accounting, it immediately gives that client something that's of value to them that they can go out and use. So that is the high level pitch on our PBC list. We have this cleanup guide link in here as well, and I think I hit all the questions in that as well. I think that's it. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time. Oh, by the way, you can, if you are in cannabis accounting and you want access to many of these tools and checklists and templates, we have over 100 in our program. You can go to dopecfo.com or email me at be@dopecfo.com as well, and we'll get back to you. Thanks, everybody.